2022 would have marked the 50th anniversary of Radio St. Lucia, but there will be no candles on cake for the former beloved national broadcaster, with the lights having been turned off on the 31st of July 2017. Former General Manager of Radio St. Lucia, Jerry George, says despite the emergence of many radio stations on island, the role performed by RSL is difficult to replace.
Radio St. Lucia would be known as a public service broadcaster. But of course, due to the configuration of broadcasting in St. Lucia, it became a commercial station, as well as trying to fulfill the requirements for a public service broadcaster. And so there has always been this balance and imbalance about what the station is doing and what it is supposed to do. Of course, being ruled by politicians, that power struggle continued throughout the 50 years.
From the early days of the Alan Chasney-led administration, the writing appeared to be on the wall for the broadcaster self-described as the nation's station. In his delivery during the policy statement for the 2017-2018 budget, then Prime Minister Chasney said Radio St. Lucia had lost its way, with the station incurring losses in excess of $500,000 annually. Chasney sounded the death knell of the station, noting that it had accumulated debt of more than $3 million. Former RSL General Manager Jerry George admits the radio station faced stiff financial challenges.
I think one of the reasons given for the closing of the station was that other stations would be able to provide the same service that Radio St. Lucia would be providing. And in any case, Radio St. Lucia had a $3 million debt over its head, and so it was one of the targeted areas for cutting out.
Throughout its history, Radio St. Lucia had been a nurturing ground for most of St. Lucia's broadcasters and broadcast technicians. But the station was trapped for many years in the mire of the middle ground of being a public broadcaster and a commercial entity, roles that are sometimes conflicting. George says the situation was not helped by the level of political interference in the management and operations of Radio St. Lucia.
Unfortunately, we saw about 3 or 4 years ago, the complete closure of the station. And everybody was asking what happens next. And I think that has been the downfall of what has happened in terms of the broadcasting in St. Lucia, is that nobody knew why it was being closed. There was never an official explanation, and nobody knew what was going to happen. Right now, the building is in a state of disgrace, and right now, if anybody is going to be given the opportunity to operate the station, they will really have to start from scratch.
There has been a call in some quarters for the re-emergence of a public radio station. Jerry George, himself a senior broadcaster, says it's difficult for commercial stations to perform the roles of a public broadcaster.
We have lost a public service broadcaster simply because a commercial station cannot fulfill the needs of all the people of St. Lucia, which is what the station, Radio St. Lucia, attempted to do. Commercial station, by the very nature, they are supposed to sort of target an audience, and that audience is supposed to be their lifeblood. The lifeblood is the people of St. Lucia when it comes to Radio St. Lucia and public service broadcasting. Every nation of the world that claims democracy has a public service broadcaster. And even the greater United States, where the competition in terms of commercial stations exists, there is a public service broadcaster. In fact, several versions of public service broadcasters. So public broadcasters do not see themselves simply as a means of just providing music entertainment, which is normally the focus of broadcasting for commercial stations, but also doing things that commercial stations would not do. Drama. They would do, for example, coverage of things that the other stations may not sound viable, even though the audience is a small audience. So it's not simply a responsibility of meeting the needs of the people of St. Lucia, but also an obligation to the people of St. Lucia to provide the kinds of information which will help them make democratic and realistic situations and decisions regarding their lives and livelihood.
While in opposition, the St. Lucia Labour Party committed itself to the re-establishment of Radio St. Lucia. Since assuming office, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre has said that the matter is under consideration. For now, there is no word on the more than 50 years of St. Lucia's recorded history, which is rotting away in a poorly protected shed. Stanley Lucien for the HCS News Force.